Welcome to Millennium Day Time Bulletin. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi and you're watching Millennium News Channel 24. Today I'm bringing you the latest updates from around the world. Let's begin with today's top headlines. Trump threatens new 50% tariff on China. Zelensky confirms Ukraine troop active in Russia's Belgorod region. Global labor market recovery slow, India an exception, ILO report. Jammu and Kashmir Assembly resumes today. Sajad loans resolution on Article 370 Public Safety Act disallowed by Speaker. Think Gaza war will stop soon. Donald Trump meets Netanyahu, says Israel working on hostage deal. Extremely tense, emotionally charged, Russia on alert as Trump tariff hit Russian crude. India ranks as third largest generator of wind solar power, reports say. Market chaos, stock prices tumble as investors rush towards safe haven assets. Now let's look at the details. Donald Trump has threatened China with an additional tariff of 50% on the goods imported into the United States if it does not withdraw a countermeasure as the global market stumbled for the third day. Speaking at the White House on Monday, the US President Donald Trump said that he was not considering a pause on the new tariff to allow for negotiation with other countries. We are not looking at that. We have many countries that are coming to negotiate deals with us, and there are going to be fair deals as well, he said. Trump reiterated his threat of 50% duties on Chinese goods if Beijing did not retract its counter tariff plans by Tuesday. If imposed, US companies bringing in certain goods from China could also face 104% tax. In a post on his social media platform, that is Truth Social, Trump said that he would introduce the extra tariff unless China withdraws its own 34% counter tariff on the American goods, which it announced on Friday. Trump said last Wednesday that he would impose a tax of 34% on the Chinese import as part of his Liberation Day that placed a minimum 10% levy on nearly all of American trading partners. If it does impose that, US companies would then have to pay a total of 104% on the Chinese import, and it comes on the top of the 20% tariff already put in place in March and the 34% announced last week. Trump said China had introduced its own countermeasure despite my warning that any country that retaliates against the United States by issuing additional tariff will be immediately met with new and subsequently higher tariffs. Beijing stalked back, and they saying that the pressuring or the threatening of the Chinese economy is not the right way to engage. The United States hegemonic move in the same and in the name of the reciprocity also serves its selfish interest at the expense of other countries' legitimate interest and put America first over international rules, the Chinese embassy spokesperson Liu Pengyu said in a statement. This is a typical move of a unilateralism, protectionism and economic bullying. Also speaking from the White House, the United States President said that there could be both permanent tariff and negotiations. We have $36 trillion debt for a reason, he said, adding that the United States would be talking to China among other countries to make a fair deal and a good deal. It's now America first, the United States President said. The escalating tension between the United States and China has increased the fear of the global trade war. Also, the tariff would come as a major blow to the Chinese manufacturers from whom the United States is a key market and we import from them. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has publicly acknowledged for the first time that his troops are active in the Russia's Belgorod region. We continue to carry carry out the active operations in the border areas of the enemy territory, and that is absolutely just. War must return to where it came from, he added on Monday. Also, his comment also referred to the Russia's Kursk region, where the Ukraine still holds a small area after a major offensive last year. Moscow has been since retaken most of its territory. Also, Zelensky said that the main objective was to protect the Ukrainian Sumy and the Kharkiv border regions and to ease the pressure on the other parts of the vast front line, particularly in the eastern Donetsk region. Russia's military had last month reported that Russians attempt to cross over the Belgorod region, but said that such attacks have been rebuffed. Russian President Vladimir Putin launched a full-scale invasion of the Ukraine in 2022, and the Moscow also currently controls about 20% of Ukraine's territory. In his video address late on Monday, Zelensky said that he had been briefed by his top commander, General Alexander, also, who has been in the situation and on the front line, including our presence in the Kursk and the Belgorod region. Zelensky thanked several army units defending Ukraine, including the 255th Assault Regiment deployed in the Belgorod region. Well done, guys. I'm proud of each one of you and everyone who is fighting for Ukraine, the president said. He also provided no further details. It is also the first explicit acknowledgement of the Ukrainian troop in Belgorod. On 18th March, Zelensky had indirectly confirmed that Ukrainian troops were there. Also, there is an operation going there, he said, when asked by the reporters to comment on the Russian Defense Ministry statement that Ukrainian troops had unsuccessfully tried to enter the western part of the Belgorod region. Russia had said that all Ukrainian attempts to advance towards the villages of the Demidovka and the Prilis had been rebuffed, and a cross-border raid have been prevented. However, several Russian military bloggers at the time reported fighting in the Demidovka itself, which lies about 2 kilometers, that's 1.2 miles from the Ukrainian border. The global economy is slowing down, making it harder for the labor markets to recover fully since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, according to the International Labour Organization, that is the ILO report, that is the World Employment and the Social Outlook Trends 2025, released in Geneva on Thursday. Pointing it to the relatively high growth rates in the Southern Asia, the ILO report said that they are driven by the India's growth performance. India's growth underpins the GDP. Also, the growth performance in the Southern Asia, a sub-region whose GDP is expected to have grown by 6.2% in the 2024 and to grow by 5.8% in 2025. India has one of the highest growing rates in the world, 6.9% in 2024, and the forecast to be 6.4% in 2025. India's growth is driven by monetary policy easing, strong domestic demand, and public investments, the report said. Citing the studies of the global agencies such as the IMF, that is International Monetary Fund, in 2024, the report said that the global employment grew in line with the labor force, keeping the unemployment rate steady at 5%. However, youth unemployment showed little improvement, remaining high at 12.6%. Informal work and the working poverty returned to the pre-pandemic level, and low-income countries face the most difficult in the creating decent jobs, it said. The geopolitical tension, the rising cost of climate change, and the unresolved debt issues are the challenges before the recovery and the reasons for putting the labor market under the pressure. Also, the economic growth stood at 3.2% in 2024, down from 3.3% and 3.6% in 2023 and 2022 respectively. A similar level of growth is expected in 2025, although a gradual deceleration is expected to set in over the medium term, the report said. The inflation, the report said, has decreased, but it remains high, reducing the level of wages. Real wages have only increased in some advanced economies, and most countries are still recovering from the effects of the pandemic and inflation, the report said. The labor force participation rate have dropped in low economic countries while increasing in high income nations, mainly among the older workers and women, the report pointed out. However, gender gap remain wide, with fewer women in the workforce limiting progress in the living standards, it said. Ahead of the resumption of the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly on Monday, the two resolutions submitted by the People's Conference President President Sajad Loan, one seeking the restoration of the Jammu and Kashmir pre-August 2019 status, and the other calling for the return of the prisoners booked under the PSA, that is the Public Safety Act, have been not admitted for the debate. Also, while no specific reason was given for the Speaker's decision, sources said that the resolution on the restoration of the Article number 370, which have been given the special status to the Jammu and Kashmir before it was abrogated, was disallowed because the National Conference government, that is the opposition, had brought the similar resolution in the last assembly sessions. The rule is that a similar bill can't be moved in a year's time, a source said. After Jammu and Kashmir was downgraded to a union territory, the Reorganization Act gave power to the Speaker to frame the rules that govern the proceeding of the House. Loans also resolution could have been put to the ruling National Conference in the part and in the spot, because while the party want to avoid a confrontation with the centre, it also cannot be seen opposing the resolution. In the first session of the current assembly, the National Conference has thwarted an attempt by the opposition to bring a resolution on the restoration of Article 370 and 35A. The ruling party then brought its own resolution seeking dialogue on the restoration of the constitutional guarantees and to work out constitutional mechanism for restoring these provisions. The non-BJP opposition, however, criticized the NC, that is the National Conference government's resolution, as weak and watered down and a humiliation and betrayal with the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Lon said that the resolution he sought to bring was unambiguous and different from the one brought by the NC. They'll talk about it, the resolution on Article 370 being repeated. Today we have the software where they can put in the one that was brought by the National Conference and the one that we have brought. Also, it says that it will do the same. I will apologize, Lone told the Indian Express. Our resolution is clear and expressive. It uses the word Article 370, it uses the word 35A, it uses the words reorganization bill, it uses the words August 2019, and is unambiguously states that we need our 370 back, we need 35A back, he said. Lone's other resolution, which sought to return the Jammu and Kashmir of prisoners booked under the PSA, was also disallowed as the matter is deemed to fall under the purview of the central government, not the Jammu and Kashmir government, according to sources. Lone said, I believe we are mistaking things. There is a difference between a state assembly having powers to make law, to administer some departments, and voicing our opinions. There is a strong need to understand that this institution, that is the assembly, reflects the will of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and nothing bars them from expressing their views. Whether Delhi agrees with it or not, it is different thing, and altogether we want our freedom back. Donald Trump on Monday held talk with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House and said that he was hopeful that the ongoing Gaza war would end soon. The two leaders said that the Israel was working on the fresh hostage deal. I'd like to see the war stop, and I think the war will stop at some point, that it won't be too distant future. Also, the president said that we would ask, and the delivery of the campaign that I told and promised would also be completed, and the war will end in Gaza. He also said that the work was ongoing to free the hostages held by Hamas, but said the securing and the release of all the hostages was a long process. Trump also said that having a peace and a peace force like the United States, they are controlling and owning the Gaza Strip, would be a good thing, and once again suggested that the Palestinians from Gaza could be moved to different countries. The statement came as Trump and Netanyahu spoke to reporters in the Oval Office after their meeting. Also, soon after the meeting, Netanyahu in the post on X also shared glimpses of the talks and wrote, President Trump has been a remarkable friend of the state of Israel. Also, he has been a great champion of our alliance. We are working together to bring our hostages home, all of them. Also, Israel launched the war after Hamas-led fighter attacked the southern Israel on October 7, 2023, killing some almost 1,200 people and taking 251 hostages, according to the Israeli tallies. Since then, Israel has also so far killed more than 50,000 Palestinians, according to the local health agencies. Following the January ceasefire that some also hostages that were released, Netanyahu said that Israel was working on another deal that we hope will succeed. We are committed to getting all the hostages out, but also eliminating the evil tyranny of the Hamas in Gaza and enabling the people of Gaza to freely make a choice to go wherever they want, he said. Netanyahu said he had also discussed with Trump the US president's bold vision for the future of Gaza, a reference to a proposal for the United States to take over the enclave that Trump put forward multiple times during the opening week of his administration. Trump's plan has been globally condemned as a proposal for ethnic cleansing. Russia's flagship Ural crude grade has tumbled alongside all major oil benchmark in the global markets rout and is to close at $50 per barrel threshold for the first time in nearly 2 years. The situation on the global oil market is extremely turbulent, which is related to the United States' decision to impose tariff on the majority of countries. The Russian news agency TASS quoted Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov as saying. Also, the Russian authorities are keeping a close eye on the oil market sell-off, Vladimir Putin's spokesperson added. Also, we are closely monitoring the situation, which is currently extremely turbulent, tense and emotionally charged, Peskov said in a press conference. Also, the Russian authorities are doing everything possible to mitigate the fallout of the global situation on the Russian economy, he added. Proceeds from the oil and gas sales are the most important cash stream for Russia's federal budget. Russian revenue from oil and gas plunged by 17% in March from a year earlier, according to the data from the Russia's finance ministry, also deepening the financial and fiscal on the Moscow's as its military operation in the Ukraine grinds on. The Ural price was around $52 per barrel at the Baltic Sea port of the Primorsk on Friday, according to the data from the Argus media cited by the Bloomberg. The price of Ural also further dropped on Monday as the oil prices continue to fall, with the WTI crude oil and the US benchmark down to $60 per barrel and Brent crude oil prices at $64. The OPEC Plus decision to raise the production in May by more than expected also contributed to the panic sell-off. Oil and gas revenue are the backbone of the Russia's federal budget and crucial to sustaining the war efforts in Ukraine. A significant drop in energy earning could undermine the Kremlin's ability to fund the military operations and the social spending simultaneously. We'll have to see how the issues unfold in a couple of more days and weeks to come. India became the world's third largest producer of electricity from wind and solar energy in 2024, overtaking Germany, to according of a new report that was published on Tuesday. The 6th edition of the global energy think tank Ember's Global Electricity Review said that the wind and the solar together generated 15% of the global electricity last year. India's share stood at 10%. The report said that the low carbon sources, including the renewable and the nuclear power, together provided 40.9% of the world electricity in 2024. This is the first time the 40% mark has been crossed since the 1940s. Also, India, the clean source, accounted for 2022, that is the percent of the electricity generation in the India. Hydropower contributed to the most at 8%, while wind and the solar together accounted for 10%. Globally, the renewable led by the growth in the clean electricity, adding a record 858 terawatt hours in the 2024, also the 49% more than the previous record in 2022. Solar was the largest source of new electricity for the third straight year, adding 474 terawatt hours in 1990 and 2024. With this, also the fastest growing power source for the 20th year in a row is India. In just 3 years, the global solar power generation doubled to 6.9% of the electricity mixed. India too saw a rapid increase in the solar power. Solar contributed 7% of the country's electricity in 2024, the generation doubling since 2021. Also, India added 24 gigawatts of solar capacity in 2024, more than twice the addition in 2023, becoming the third largest market after China and the United States. It also recorded the the fourth largest increase in the solar generation globally, adding 20 terawatt per hour. Also, the solar power has become the engine of the global energy transition, said the philosopher, that is the McDonald, the Ember's managing director. Paired with battery storage, solar is set to be an unstoppable force. As the fastest growing and the largest source of the new electricity, it is critical in meeting the world's ever increasing demand for electricity. The report released on Tuesday, along with the open data set on the electricity generation in 2024, covers 88 countries that account for 93% of the global electricity demand and includes the historic data for 215 countries. Ember's Asia Program Director Aditya Lola said that the green energy transition in Asia is accelerating, led by the record growth in the solar and other renewables. Also, with the electricity demand set to rise across the region, a robust clean energy market is crucial for the continued expansion of the clean power. This will also strengthen the energy security, economic resilience. Also, it will be helping in the emerging countries access to the benefits of the clean energy economy. Also, the senior energy analyst said that India have the more notable progress in the adopting of the renewable, but now faces a major challenge ensuring its clean generation grows fast enough to meet the rising demands. Calling India a solar superpower, the United States climate change chief Simon Steele in February said that the fully embracing of the global energy and the clean energy boom would accelerate India's economic rise. As part of the climate commitments or the nationally determined contribution, that is NDCs, submitted to the UNFCCC in 2024, also India aims to achieve 50% of its installed electricity power capacity for the non-fossil fuels, that is sources, by 2020. Now bringing you latest updates on today's market trends. Global stock market faced a sharp sell-off with the major indices across the United States and beyond experiencing significant losses. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted by 890.01 points, that is minus 2.08, reflecting widespread investor anxiety. The S&P 500 also saw a steep decline of 2.70%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq suffered the most, falling by 275 points, that is a 0.56% gain, that has signaling of the strong risk sentiment in the market. The Russell 2000, which tracks smaller cap stock, also dropped by 2.72%, indicating that the selling pressure extended beyond the large-scale companies. Also, the steep declines in these indices suggest that the investors may be reacting to the concern about the economic growth, interest rate hikes, or the global uncertainties. Adding to the market turbulence, the VIX index, that is often referred to as the Wall Street fear gauge, spiked up by 19.21%, reaching 27.86% as well. The surge in the volatility reflects heightened investor uncertainty and an increased demand for the hedging against the market declines. Historically, a rising S6, which is the VIX index, is associated with the periods of the financial stress and the sharp of the increasing, suggesting that the traders expect further market instability in the near term. The market downturn was not limited to the United States, as the global indices followed the suit. In Canada, the S&P TSX Composite fell by 378 points, that is minus 1.53% of decline, while the S&P TSX 60 lost 1.35%, that is the declines that indicate that the weakness in the North American equities is widespread, likely driven by the concerns over the inflation, central bank policies, or geopolitical developments. South American markets were also affected by the Brazil's Bovespa index that slipped 515.25 points, that is a 0.41% decline. Meanwhile, Mexico's S&P BMV IPC recorded the largest percentage drop among the Latin American indices, tumbling by 1,112.75 points, that is a decline of 2.11%, signaling investors and pullback of the major leaders. The Child's S&P IPSA index experienced a more modest decline of 7.42 points, that is a 0.110%, suggesting a relatively more stable market environment compared to its regional peers. The sharp declines across global markets indicate a widespread risk of sentiment, with the investor potentially reacting to macroeconomic concern such as persistence of the inflation that fears the higher interest rate or geopolitical tensions in the society. The sharp rise in the VIX suggests that the market participants expected continued volatility in the coming days. In these trends persist, the central bank and the policymakers may face increased pressure to address the investor concern and restore the confidence in the financial markets. Commodity markets saw a broad decline across the energy, metals, and agricultural sectors, reflecting investor caution amid the ongoing economic uncertainty. Crude oil prices experienced a modest downturn, with WTI crude oil falling to 0.47% to $65.72, while the Brent crude oil that dropped 0.35% to reach $68.55. The decline in the oil prices suggests a potential easing of demand, possibly due to concerns over the slowing global economic growth or increased supply from the oil-producing nations. Additionally, fluctuations in the geopolitical events and OPEC Plus production strategies could be contributing to the price movement. Natural gas saw the steepest decline among energy commodities, falling to 1.45% to reach $4 to $4.3. Also, the sharp drop could indicate oversupply in the market or reduced demand due to changing seasonal factors. With the natural gas prices remaining volatile, traders are closely watching supply chain disruptions and the global energy consumption patterns. Precious metal also experienced losses, signaling a shift in the investor sentiment. Gold that declined by 0.22% to reach $2,893 despite its role as a safe haven asset during periods of uncertainty. The slight drop in the gold prices may indicate that investors are moving funds into other assets, possibly amid expectation of central bank policy shift or rising bond yields. Silver followed a similar pattern, slipping 0.035 to $32.41, also reflecting a broader sell-off in the market metals. Also, given silver industrial application, the decline could also point to the concerns allowing the manufacturing activity or weaker industrial demand. In the agricultural sector, soybean prices dipped slightly by 3.5% to reach $10, while the decline was relatively minor. The highlights that the ongoing volatility in the agriculture markets, driven by the factors such as global trade policies, weather condition, and supply chain disruption, are very much ongoing. We'll be right back after a short break. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi, and you're watching Millennium News Channel 24.
Hello viewers, you are watching Millennium News 24. America and global villages scenes. America independence built by immigrants, manufacturers, roads, highways, educations, healthcare, IT, scientists, space, business development to all thousands of multimedia and all major social media platforms and news network in America. Millennium News 24, one of truthfully news networks in America and global news organizations. Please watch, follow and subscribe. We are in iOS and Android devices, Roku, Amazon, Apple devices, all smart TV, globally Horizon satellite, social media Millennium News 24, Millennium TV 24. Website www.millenniumnews24.com and www.millenniumtv24.com. Thank you.
Welcome back. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi and you're watching Millennium Daytime Bulletin. That's all for now. Thank you for tuning in. Stay with us for more updates. Log in to stay updated with the latest news on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at Millennium News 24. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel Millennium News 24. You can also watch us on Android and iOS devices as well as on Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV and all smart TV platforms. Enjoy entertainment and latest news with us. Download the Millennium TV app, Millennium TV USA for Android and Millennium News on Google. Thank you for being part of Millennium News Channel 24.